States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have 5 members present tonight of our 7. So we do have a quorum. Although it's not on the minutes, we are on the agenda, we do have to approve the minutes from the last 2 meetings. So, everybody have a chance to read the minutes of March 8th? If you do not have any additions or corrections, I would entertain a motion to approve them as submitted.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from March 8th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of March 8th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Then on March 10th, we had a meeting. I did see a couple of things in there. It referred to Greg Black as Gary Black. Other than that, then on the vote, it had his motion was passed 6-1, and there was only 6 of us there, and 1 voted no. So I found what it was. You voted twice, according to the.
Oh, I did. I didn't even see that. Uh-oh. Oops.
I think she's entitled.
Other than that, that's all I saw.
Good catch.
So if there aren't anything else that somebody saw, I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes as submitted with those 2 corrections.
Go ahead.
I move to approve the minutes from the meeting of March 10th with corrections made.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Tonight, we have 2 items on the agenda. The first one is under old business. Rezone from residential 1 R1 to plan unit development PUD, the Bevy Pyatt Homes, LLC.
Mr. President, as a member of the Board of Trustees for Danville Christian Church, who owns the property, I'm going to use myself.
Very good, very good. But we still have 4. We still have 4 voting members, so that's still a quorum.
We still have a quorum, yes. Okay, so
Okay.
this is a petition that, if you recall, a few years ago was brought to you by Arbor Homes. It was also for a PUD, and it was turned down. The petitioner that is coming before you tonight is Brian Toohey, is the attorney for Pyatt Builders. They are coming before you with another proposal for a PUD. And if you look, I've submitted a case summary for your packet with a few comments regarding the PUD proposal and some changes that we would like to see. And then also I put a comparison chart for you in your packet that shows what PUDs have been approved in the town and this proposed PUD, just to see how they kind of relate to each other as far as lot size and architecturals. So having said that, Brian Toohey is the attorney. Brian, if you'd like to come up, and we'll start your presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Plan Commission. Is it okay if I speak without a mask on?
Yes.
Okay. My name's Brian Toohey. My address is 50 South Meridian, and I represent the petitioner in this case at 1928 10th Street. Here with me tonight is Paul Clare, the Vice President of Pyatt Builders LLC, and also Todd Pyatt, the president and owner of Pyatt Builders LLC, and also Brad Warland, who is our traffic engineer. Just a moment's introduction to Pyatt Builders. I've known them, I think, since they were incorporated, which was about 12 years ago. Both Todd Pyatt and Paul Clare unfortunately had the misfortune to attend Purdue University, which I don't hold against them. But they are both fine gentlemen from the Central Indiana area. I don't know about Brad Warland, but I would guess as an engineer he didn't go to IU. So they've been in business for about 12 years. They build homes in Boone County, Hamilton County, Hendricks County, Johnson County, and in towns including Carmel, Westfield, Noblesville, Greenwood, and Whitestown. Lisa, if we could start that. And I've given the, right, that's perfect. Thank you very much. And I think I've provided you folks handouts if you'd like to go along. So again, as Lisa introduced, it's a 20-acre site on the north side of 10th Street. It's just west of North 200 East. And it's owned by the church. It's right across the street from the Whisperwood Lakes area. And we are respectfully requesting that this be rezoned to PUD to allow for the development of 66 single-family lots. And if I could go to the next slide. When you look at rezonings, of course, the Plan Commission looks at strategic plans for the area. And one of the tenets or elements of the strategic plan, or the Danville strategic plan, is to improve access to a broad range of quality housing that's accessible, affordable, and appropriate for all levels of income. So these homes, members of the Plan Commission, would range in price from about $250,000 to $350,000. They would typically be sort of two-income families would be maybe a first home. But some families would be a move-up home, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But so these would be, you wouldn't call $250,000 a starter home, but in this day and age, I looked at some data, and in Danville, I think the average price is about $249,000. The median price, so half over, half below, is about $216,000. So the lesser expensive homes in this proposed development would be more than the average price of Danville homes and a fair amount more than the median price. Next slide, please. So what we originally proposed is 66 lots. Then we had a neighborhood meeting by Zoom with our surrounding property owners on March 4th. And after that meeting, the person that was right across the street, right down there where the drive comes out, asked if we could move the driveway eastward so it wouldn't just line up exactly on their drive. And Paul Clare met with that person, and when we come back for final plat, I'll show you the next slide, please. We moved that driveway eastward about 20 feet, and we'll make that part of our presentation that, as we agreed to with that neighbor, we would keep that location over further to the east. The next slide, please. In a planned unit development, you have to have so much open space, and our open space comes up to about 5 plus acres, and so that equals about 25.6%. So we exceed the requirement for the open space calculation that comes along with the planned unit development. And I'll show you, if I could go back one slide, please. So the open space is over there on the right where that cursor is. Thank you. And then down in the front, there are 2 open areas in there, and then there's also, that's excluded, but right there is an open space area. And there's 2 other open spaces inside the subdivision. So that's where we get to that 5 acres of green space. Let's talk for a minute about the type of homes we would build in here, please. Next slide. So Pyatt would build all these homes. And as I mentioned, they build in central Indiana and have been for over a decade. The homes, there would not be any duplexes. There's nothing wrong with duplexes, but these would all be single-family homes. They range in size from about 1,500 square feet, one-story ranches, to over 3,600 square feet for 2-story homes. and those square footages do not include basements. So people that would have basements homes would have more square footage than that. The average lot size that these homes would be on would be about 8,000 square feet. Some of the lots are 10, 11,000 square feet, but averaged across the subdivision, they're about 8,000 square feet, and the smallest lot size would be 6,600 square feet. The two price ranges for the homes that I'm going to show you here are between $250,000 to the low 300s for single-story homes, ranch homes, and from about $275,000 to $350,000 for the two-story homes. Overall, given what homes cost today to build, Pyatt expects the overall average price to be north of $300,000 throughout the community. Pyatt has a good reputation in the community, and they are able to offer what's called a 2-10 warranty. So that allows the homeowner to know that for a couple of years, it's kind of a bumper-to-bumper warranty, and then for the next 8 years, things like foundations and roofs are covered, and you have to reach a certain quality level to be able to offer those types of warranties. All homes would have a minimum of 2-car garages. 3-car garages would be available. They'd be recessed or set back a couple of feet from the other bays to give some break in the front of the home. The roof pitches would be a minimum of 612, and all homes would have a front porch. And the reason I'm taking your time about going through this is different than what the Arbor community proposed. As an example, the Arbor homes were smaller. The Arbor homes were closer together than these homes. They didn't have these commitments that I'm going through right now, these architectural commitments. There's nothing wrong with those homes. I'm just pointing out these are more expensive, and you'd have to say, I hope from looking at those photographs, the quality is increased from what was proposed originally. As an example, all the homes would have no less than 25% brick on the front elevation, brick or masonry. If a person wanted to buy a home that was all brick or all masonry, these folks are glad to build it for them. They do that. There's corner lot commitments so that you don't look at a blank wall as you come around a corner lot. All the driveways would be concrete, and the separation of homes would be a minimum of 6 feet from side yard to home, and from home to home, a minimum of 12 feet. There's a landscaping commitment that there would be 2 trees planted in the front yard at the time of construction. The front yard would be sodded. I don't think that was the case in the former development that was presented to you. And homes that have side yards that are on corners, they'd sod those side yards. If you're just a home in the middle of the subdivision, they'd sod the front yard and seed the backyard. And there would be 12 shrubs or bushes in the foundation planting bed. Along the front of the development, the developer would install a 10-foot wide asphalt path along 10th Street. I suspect that's to eventually connect up with other pathways that would be installed as 10th Street develops. We would expect this subdivision, if it's approved, to take about 3 years to build this out. Next slide. Okay, so there's some of our interiors, as you can see. Quality cabinetry, quality countertops, good windows. These homes they show very well, and that's why these gentlemen have been successful in those markets. Bathrooms, twin sinks, high-level cabinetry and countertops, good bathroom fixtures. So any zoning, traffic is an issue. I understand that along that area, and it's been a rural area. We had Mr. Warland's company, Traffic Engineering, look at the impact that 66 homes would have, and they commented in their summary that based on the full build-out, the adjacent intersection of County Road 200 East at County Road 100 North and 200 East at East Main Street can accommodate the additional site traffic, including projected background growth. So as other things happen, they believe those intersections can handle this traffic without modification. Checked in with Dr. Schaefer at the school because I wanted to understand whether the school could accommodate the possible addition of 66 homes over a 3-year period. I sent him the information I've given you, the summary, and he wrote me back an email. He was very responsive and very helpful. He said he appreciated the early information on it. This type of housing would produce typically about a half a child per home when finished, and that alone would not cause any particular hardship for the Danville schools in terms of space or staffing. And he said, with this much notice, it's something we can plan forward to accommodate. So greatly appreciated him taking the time to respond to our inquiry. Lisa's staff report recommends approval to the PUD, which we appreciated. It's been great to work with the planning staff here in Danville. Next slide. I think that's my summary, and I'm sure I'm probably running out of time and I appreciate your indulgence in the overage. In summary, members of the Plan Commission, the homes are a step up from what was proposed in the previous development. There's a monotony commitment, so you won't drive down the street and see the same homes right next to each other or right across the street from each other. There's a front porch. The homes are larger than what was proposed before. The homes cover less of the lots because the lots are bigger than the pre-proposed development. There's more landscaping than the proposed development, and there's larger side yard setbacks. That is more separation between the homes. The estimated price range average is between that $250,000, so $250,000 to $350,000. And it appears from our traffic engineer that the intersections can accommodate the traffic, and the school has indicated they could accommodate the students. The staff supports our request, and we'll try to answer any questions you might have, and thank you for your time this evening.
Might I have a clarification? I know the main roofs are 612, however, some of the lower roofs on the two-story that project out over the garages or over the porches are not 612, that's correct?
Yes, sir.
What are they?
I'm going to let these two gentlemen that actually build the homes rather than take a swing at that. So, Todd, like take this example here. The main roof is 612, right? What's that? Is that a shed roof? Is that a correct term?
Excuse me. Can you come up to the microphone, please, and introduce yourself? We cannot hear you if you're not speaking directly in the microphone. And
What are those other pitches in those other roofs? And introduce yourself and give them the address, please.
Hi, Todd Pyatt with Pyatt Builders, 630 3rd Avenue Southwest, Carmel, Indiana. So in this house in particular, the main body would be a 612 minimum. The return gables, which would be the two that would go back into the house, those would be anywhere from an 812 to a 1012. And then ancillary other roofs like porch roofs and sheds on the dormer, things like that would go down as low as 412.
I didn't want to approve that, and everybody think it's all 612. and-
Thank you.
so.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
From listening to your description, there was a prior application for a PUD on land.
Yes.
Am I correct in understanding that petition was brought by a different builder?
Yes. It was.
No, I wasn't here then. I also read that you plan to have windows on corner lots. Will there be windows on every side of the house?
Yes.
Is that a,
Not clear in there, we'll make it as part of our presentation, that there will be windows on all four sides of the homes
I think that would be a good thing.
right now.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Was there a lighting standard, sorry, was there a lighting standard on either roads or homes themselves?
fortunately, our ordinance does not address lighting standards, only in the Corridor Protection Overlay District. So what we've been doing is asking at the time of the PUD what type of lighting that they're proposing. And I think in this case, they say they're doing carriage lights for the homes.
And what I think we'd be comfortable with, if that's acceptable to the Plan Commission, is that for streetlights, I say something wrong here, but for streetlights, whatever the planning department tells us is the appropriate streetlights to meet the town standards, we'll agree to do that. And then on the home lights, each home it's in here shall have a dusted-on carriage light on it. So that's in our PUD ordinance. Thank you.
When was the traffic study completed?
It was completed recently. Do you have the date? You better come up here and introduce yourself.
Brad Warland, 28 Round Hill Court, Danville, Indiana. I am a part of Traffic Engineering Incorporated. We submitted the traffic report on March 1st of this year.
Okay, and were you aware when that was done that there's going to be at the corner of Money Lane and 10th Street a 300-unit PUD put in?
We
Was that
are
included?
aware of nearby development.
And it was included in the report?
Not specifically to that development, but in general, we account for future proposed developments with background growth. And for this one, we use 2% over 5 years, which accounts for projected background growth for development such as that one.
Thank you.
What about rear elevations on the houses? Has there been any proposal on those?
We have not in the PUD, but of course, we're willing to discuss that, and Todd's here. What are
I'll bet there be some.
your? So, we certainly offer options, screened-in porches,
Yes.
patios, sunrooms, things like that. These lots would accommodate those if people would want those. Is there a rear patio on all of the homes? With, just as a standard feature? And then would all of these homes offer those things like screened-in porches, sunrooms? What's the other thing I was thinking of? Bump-out rooms?
Yes, so as a standard, there would be a concrete patio that would be on every house as a standard. If it would move to a basement, then typically that would get changed to a raised wood deck. And we do offer, and as an option on every single plan would be bump outs, bays, screen-in porches, covered patios, all of those type of things. We typically find that we're seeing about 30% right now doing some kind of covered patio. That's a popular option right now in general. So that's kind of what we're typically seeing.
Well, I know the staff said they'd like to see some real elevation architectural standards for the homes along the perimeter of the property. What did you have in mind there, Lisa?
My main concern is just that there is some sort of a buffer yard for residents that are adjacent to this property. If you look at their conceptual layout, it shows trees along both sides of the property. And I would like to see some sort of a commitment to preserve those at a minimum, and some type of rear elevation that backs up to some of the homes adjacent to this property. Maybe not so much the ones where there's a pond or there's open space, but in others where it may be adjacent to existing residences.
You're specifically probably talking about the lots that right towards the front of their property where there is a house in the middle of that project.
Right, right. And along the east boundary of the
Yes.
property. And
So-
I don't know posing any mounds or anything. It wasn't specific in the PUD, other than you agreed to do some kind of tree preservation areas.
Lisa, it would help if we could go to maybe slide 2 and 4, perhaps? Go to 2, please, first. Thank you, that's great. So, well, in the PUD document, what we were thinking about is that, as you can see,
There's a pointer right here at the podium.
luck with these, so I'll hold my breath. This is great. So you can see there's a pretty good stand of trees, a line of trees is a better way to describe it, along the west, north, and east border. And Lisa, could I ask you to go to slide 4, please? And what we propose to do is we think that's between 15 to 30 feet wide in this area here that I'm highlighting. We propose to keep all those, that's in our plan, keep all those to provide that separation, screening, if you will, between our subdivision and the, what will come in here and what will come in here. I suppose if the Plan Commission wants us to consider some type of, or, some portion of these homes,
Right there on that curve, I think.
Right
is the
there.
ones,
yeah,
that back up to that house. And
right along here.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Todd, you okay with that? That we would agree that the homes in this area here along this curb, we'll just make it mandatory that those owners have to buy either a screened-in porch or a covered patio or a sunroom or something along that line, so that way you know that there's just not unimproved back walls along those houses. We could agree to do that. So the homes that would stretch from the west side of the entry, say 5 lots in, we could add a commitment for those homes, for the rears of those homes.
Is there a random barn on that parcel of property?
Lisa, could we go back to the overhead?
1928, right there?
I think they constructed like a shelter several years ago. They were going to use it, I don't know, for the church, I'm
Shelter
assuming.
house.
Oh, okay.
And so that's,
Church built that.
Okay.
right.
Does anything screen the existing house visually from,
Aren't there some trees right here, Todd, that do screen that? And we'd keep those as much as we can, and the ones that are healthy.
Looks like it's on their property.
It's some of it's on theirs, some of it's on ours. I think it kind of cuts across the line.
I think that would be a good idea. That house has probably thought it was isolated for years and years and years, and putting a nice screen through there would help maintain.
Yes? So we could, and we've got room here, don't we, we could put a line of evergreens along here to screen that. So we could add that as a commitment. That'd be underneath the first, second, third, start of the 4th house west of the driveway. That could work.
Because that parcel to the left is open space, right?
This stays open,
And
yes.
that's yours.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And this over in here stays open and in here. Yeah, so it's true, they're going to have some houses around them, but they won't have houses on either sides of them.
Now, there is a house to the east of the property, right?
There is.
And it's screened pretty well, isn't it?
Maybe if we could go back to 2, Lisa? Right in there?
Yeah.
And Paul, is that the gentleman you've met with? Where's he? Right there, okay. And then you did meet with this gentleman here, right? Across the street? Yeah.
It might not hurt to consider those 3 lots, too. On the right hand, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Could I trouble you one more time, Lisa, to go to 4? So you're thinking these right in here? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can put some evergreens, pine trees along there to screen that. So that'd be the 3 north of the entrance on the east side of the entrance and the 4 west of the entrance on the west side of the entrance.
For the screening of evergreen.
Yes, sir.
I think.
Okay, I just wanted to jot that down.
So I assume the street signs, you're probably going to go with whatever the specs are for the town,
Yes, sir.
and do they maintain them, or does the town?
The town will maintain them as long as they are a town spec sign.
Okay.
If they're of some era or time,
Yeah.
then they would need to set that up for the homeowners association to do.
Like to comply with the town standards because we're going to put it in the town's right-of-way, street right-of-way, so.
Okay. And the lights that you're putting on the houses are the type that shoot straight down, they don't,
Carriage lights with downward design, yes, sir.
any other questions? Great. No?
Thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
So since we have no other questions right now, this is a public hearing. I will open it up to the audience. If anybody would like to speak, please come up to the microphone, give your name and address, and say what you need to say. Now, we're talking about zoning. We know that there's issues with stormwater runoff and stuff that will be addressed, but not at this meeting.
1917 10th Street. I'm the one that's directly across the street from him where he
Okay?
moved the driveway 20 feet. I do appreciate that. You just probably kind of answered my one question here was I don't necessarily agree with the traffic report. With those 300 houses being built down there, 10th Street's pretty maxed out a lot of times right now. The original drawing showed a pass-through, which would have to be over onto my property, which there's a big drainage ditch right there. So I was kind of curious as far as what kind of thoughts you guys would have, sorry about that, on that as far as, you know, would the pass-through be needed considering the 300 houses down just west of there? And if so, what are we going to do with that drainage ditch? Would they pipe it, or what would they do? And then if they pipe it, which is, to me, would be the logical answer, what are we going to do with the water on my property?
Right now, I'll tell you, we cannot answer that because that hasn't been addressed. And that will have to be addressed at the time of the site plan review. Is that correct, Lisa?
Yes, that will be definitely part of the plans as they come forward. There is some significant, no, I won't say significant, but there is right-of-way across the street because that is also a plat. And when that was approved, they had to dedicate additional right-of-way. And it looks like, based on their sketch, that they're showing some sort of A-cell, D-cell lane or something on their sketch. But yes, that will be addressed during the platting of this subdivision if approved.
Right. So all those issues get talked about, but we can't talk about them now because they haven't done the engineering work.
Sure. The other question I had was, when Paul came out to the house, I did appreciate he came out and talked to me on that. Him and I talked about possibly playground over there, and he said that they would talk about it. And I haven't seen anything as far as playgrounds here tonight, and the reason I'm asking this is I have a lot of trouble with kids coming into my property from Whisper Woods the way it is now, and they've got a playground very close. I don't want to take the liability of kids coming across there, cutting across my property to go to the playground. The other thing is, wife planted a couple of lilac bushes and that kind of stuff in the backyard, and when the kids came over and they were playing in the backyard, they trampled it, and she can't get anything grow back there. So I hate being a grump, but, you know, I don't want them in my yard, is what I'm saying. So I don't want the liability, and I don't want them trampling down, you know, flowers and that kind of stuff. So have we addressed anything as far as where the kids are going to play or what they're going to do over there?
Not at this time, we haven't.
Going to be at a later date, or is
It
that
will
something?
be.
Their PUD proposal does not show any kind of playground areas or anything like that. They just have the open areas as shown on the northeast
We can ask them.
open space, and then on the southwest.
Provide for park benches. But I
That-
didn't see anything else as way as a minute.
They're saying 66 houses and 20 acres, which is fine. Otherwise, that's less than, what, a third of an acre basically per lot. That's not enough room for kids to play. So, I mean, I'm going to have the same problem as I do with Whispering Woods with them probably. And that's, I'm wanting to get that addressed before we would, get that.
Are you planning playground equipment over there somewhere or what?
Weren't, but if it's here.
Brian, I'm so sorry. Can you come to the microphone? When she does minutes, we won't be able to hear what you're saying at all. We are looking at new microphones, so.
I should know that. So there would be room here, there'd be room here, but that'd be right near a pond. So I don't think that would be a great location. But up here, we'd be away from the entryway, and we could put a small playground here if that's the Planning Commission's desire, and just add it as a commitment. It may make sense, and we'd be willing to do that. And then we'd turn over it, we'd build it and equip it, and then turn it over to the homeowners association for them to keep it up.
There's a bigger area down there at the south, but you probably don't want to put it that close to the road.
That was Mr. Pyatt's thinking. You're right. Could put it in here, but probably be best to have it up away from the road back, because this would be the least traffic area of the neighborhood. Get the kids up there, we think it would be better.
Okay. That's it? All right. Thank you.
Concerning, and much better than public.
All right. Anyone else?
Good evening. I'm Kyle Wooten. I'm at 1094 North County Road 200 East. And I know that you stated that sometime down the road, the stormwater issues would be discussed. Just want to find out what that process looks like, when that is discussed, or how it's discussed. Because I'm assuming by the natural topography of the property that any, we'll say, I guess, public easements, drainage easements along 10th Street would not be able to substantiate what comes off of this property. So I assume at that point in time, especially with where the retainage pond is located, that it would be having to cross private property. So, like I said, I was just curious as the process from this point.
The process is, as they develop this project, they have to send their engineers' estimates for stormwater and other items to the town engineer for review. That all has to be reviewed before it comes back to the Plan Commission. And if it's not up to the standards that it needs to be, we can't deal with it. We won't. So that is the process. But as you can tell, until they get approval to do this project, they're not going to spend thousands of dollars on engineering specs, until they know that they're going to build. And one of our members who's not here is the stormwater guru of Danville.
Right.
He will be checking that pretty close.
Mr.
But the
Claire,
rule is you cannot discharge more water off of that place than's coming off of it now. That's why that pond's there, to catch all that in high usage or high water, and then release it at a rate that's acceptable to standards.
Very well said. You can do this job,
You want to hire
can't
me? No.
you? For the record,
Back to work.
my name is Paul Clare with Pyatt Builders. As you stated, the calculations and all the engineering has to be done. But the next step in this, if you all recommend approval and it goes to council and council approves the rezone, the next step is the primary plat. And during the primary platting process, which is a public meeting, comes back to this board for another review. During that process, the drainage and other improvements, site improvements are starting to be looked at more critically. So the drainage will go through a preliminary drainage review at that time. It'll establish drainage areas, it'll establish volumes and flow rates and those kind of things for the whole community, for this community. And then if that primary plat for the whole community is approved, then we have to go through and do detailed calculations and detailed engineering plans, which also comes back to, I'm not sure if that comes back to the Plan Commission or not, but it certainly comes back for a third review for all of those calculations, detailed calculations, before we can ever start any kind of construction on the site. So there is a lot of review that's conducted before anything really happens on this site. So, but to speak in terms of just the drainage and concept, generally speaking, there's drainage that comes from the west into the site, and then this site drains from here to the east. So we're going to be, when those calculations come forward, all of that drainage is going to be collected into our drainage system, routed to our pond. It's going to be detained, so it's held back and released at the rate that you suggested, those calculations, and it's going to be released at a much lower rate than it is today. So all of that drainage that's coming through there now will be intercepted and detained in our ponds, in our pond. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Missy Martin. I'm at 1160.
A little closer to the mic, please.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Missy Martin. I'm at 1160 North County Road 200 East. Thank Paul for coming out and talking to my husband and I. But I do have a question, because we are concerned about the drainage, because most of that water comes onto our property. We're looking at an easement that goes into the drain that leads out to the river down the road. Across the street is a farmer, but that drain is stopped up, and it also floods on his field. Who's going to be responsible for that? Because if that drain continues to flood, it's going to back up into our property, which our property already floods. So who will be responsible for that? Would that be us, or would that be the farmer, or would that be the town?
It's in the county,
Oh, I'm sorry, in the county, okay.
probably would be county.
Probably the county, because when we bought that property in 2005, in 2009, we had a flood that we had water up to our waist. I contacted the county, well, actually the town. They come out and did an assessment and said that there was no issues with the drainage. However, there was, because for the past 16 years, I mean, when it rains, our property floods a lot. So I'm really concerned how this pond is going to be able to maintain all this water plus the drainage that comes onto our property. Especially if it's across the field, that the farmer's property floods as well, that's going to back up and cause additional flooding on our property.
So you're saying it stopped up east of 200?
Yes, east of 200, yes.
Which is definitely county.
Okay, right.
I would assume that would have to be dealt with before.
Yeah, I mean, there are some parcels along 200 East on the east side that are still in the county. There is a development that's south that is proposing a rezone right now. It's called Quail West, and it is probably, I mean, they're going to be handling some of the drainage in that area, but I don't know specifically where you're talking about. I think I do. But you probably need to consult with, if that property's in the county, you probably need to consult with the county surveyor's office or engineering. If it's something that maybe you contact Barry Lofton in our office, and he may be able to provide some information for you.
Anyone else? In that case, I will close the public hearing portion of it. Anybody up here have any other questions? No? Okay. Okay, this plan commission's action is one of three things. We either give a favorable recommendation for rezoning request to the town council. We give a favorable recommendation for rezoning request with commitments, which there are commitments, so. Or we give an unfavorable recommendation for rezoning request. Those are our three options, and I think the first one's ruled out because of the commitments that we've agreed to.
I move that we make a favorable recommendation for rezoning with commitments.
Okay, we have a favorable recommendation for rezoning request with the commitments. Do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
We have a motion for that and a second. At this time, I will call roll call. Sue Rempert,
Aye.
Jill Howard,
Aye.
Greg Van Leer,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Motion carries 4-0. May I see you just a second?
I did.
I need it. He'll find it. Thank you. I just want to talk. Another 508 or 317. 508. 24. Just want to talk to him a little bit about another project. Appreciate it.
We did go to law school. I was the one trying to escape the babies. Yeah. I don't remember her face, but I do remember. Oh,
Tell him. Call me after the 24th, because I'm going south to play golf. How are you? Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Okay, let me get to the second item.
Okay, this is number 2.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, how are you?
Thank you. Yeah.
There it is. Let me get rid of some of this.
Yeah, that's better.
Sure. Well, they're bigger. I couldn't read them ones I had.
Magnifying glass.
Couldn't figure out where they were wanting to put the building.
Neither.
Back here. See, I couldn't tell them a little. Okay,
Well, she's got city. Where her property's located.
item 2, new business, public hearing, site plan review, BCC LLC, RM Electric, located at 3095 East Main Street, 5.91 acres. No, this is just site plan. Site plan review.
Yeah. Yes, this is for a site plan approval for property that's located at 3095 East Main. There's an existing building there. It used to be the Ditch Witch, and now it's RM
Electric.
RM Electric. They are proposing to construct a new building at the rear of the property. We've had several back and forth conversations about some improvements that they could do on the building because There are no architectural requirements for commercial or industrial buildings, and they've been very easy to work with, and they have provided some additional commitments for the north end of the building since it faces faces Main Street. So you have Dale Cruz with Cruz Consulting here to make a presentation.
Good evening, I'm Dale Cruz, Cruz Consulting, 7384 Business Center Drive in Avon, and I am fortunate to be here this evening on behalf of Brandon Clapp and his wife, who are the proprietors and owners of R&M Electric. As Lisa said, this project is located in the old Ditch Witch building, so I don't know if you all know where the old Ditch Witch building was. You see a lot of head nods. It's right across the street from the new Camden subdivision. It's directly across the street from the new Camden subdivision. And Brandon's company currently employs about 75 people. They are an electrical contractor. They do schools. They do commercial type work. At this particular property, they have about 10 employees that are here. There's 7 to 8 office staff, and there's 2 to 3 warehouse people that work in the building that's there now. And their mission or their goal is to add a 13,500 square foot building in the southwest corner of the property, which you'll see probably on about the second or third sheet that I've given you. It looks like this. It's got some trees on the side of it, but you'll see the building in the southwest corner. And this building, this 13,000 square foot building, is to be about 4,000 square feet of office space, which will let them add approximately 4 to 5 manager type employees in the office. So we'll allow them to add approximately 15 to 20 field staff that the office staff will manage. So the 7 to 8 employees that are in the existing building will move to the new building with the addition of 4 to 5. So we'll end up with 4 to 5, 7 to 8. So we'll end up with 10 to 13, 14, something like that, employees in this new building. And then the old building will still keep the 2 warehouse people, and whatever is office in that building now, at least some of the office that's in that building now, will be converted to warehouse space, and they'll just continue to use the existing building for warehouse space. The problem they have, their quality problem they have, is that they have outgrown their office space, and they need more office space to have the people in the office to manage the people in the field. This new building will also have, actually, we might as well just go to that sheet while we're talking about the building. So it's probably about the last sheet, maybe? Kind of out of order, I guess, but. Yeah, it's the last sheet. So you'll see the last sheet, which is this sheet here. So the east elevation is the elevation that you see at the top. And then you'll see 5 overhead doors, and actually you'll see 6 overhead doors. The one to the furthest east is a wash bay. And then the other bays are used to keep their vehicles in, mostly in the wintertime, so that when they get calls, emergency calls where they have to go out in the middle of the night, they have vehicles in those stalls that are already warm, or machines in there that are already warm, so they can take them out and put them to work. And then the southern 4,000 square feet of this building, you'll see is where the office space is. And as far as the architectural features of this building, that southern piece has a masonry element at the bottom. That's a brick element that you see on the bottom, that you can see on the bottom of that page there. That actually is a brick element, and that wraps around the south side of the building, which extends up to the top of the windows. And then above that is the metal-sided building. And then one thing that I should note is that this particular elevation view shows windows above the doors, and for security reasons, they've taken those are out. So those 5 windows on the east and the 5 on the west, those are out. The high ones, those are out. And then Lisa asked for them to consider doing something to doll up the north face of the building, because on this particular elevation, that's what you got on the north, was a plain Jane metal sided building. So the architect and Brandon and his wife went to work on a different, an upgrade elevation view, which has 3 pods. This is actually wood. They're not doors. They're just sort of made to look like doors, but they're not really functioning doors because on the other side of that wall is where the wash bay is. And then they added some decorative light fixtures and then a few trees in front of the building. So that was their idea of a compromise on the north face of the building. And what else should we talk about? Should we probably talk about generally, I guess, how this thing is going to drain? So on the sheet that we were looking at, the very first, that's got the trees on the side of it, you'll see that the building is there at the southwest corner of the new one. The existing building is right in the middle of the property. And the way that we're handling the detention facility for this property is in the southeast corner of the property. We're going to put a detention pond that will basically manage about the eastern 2/3 of the site. There's a portion up here in the northwest corner of the property that just can't get here because it just drains the other direction. But it's grass, and we're not proposing to do anything there anyway. So all of the hardscape, hard surface elements of this property all make it to this drainage facility, and then it outlets through an existing storm sewer system that's in the neighboring property to the east. So the drainage actually, on this particular one, we had drainage outlet, which served our purpose, which oftentimes on sites is a challenge for us. But this one actually worked out pretty well. One thing that we have talked a lot about is landscaping. And I gave you a picture of this beacon printout. And what I want you to see on this beacon printout is on the south, that picture right there, on the south property line, and the Settlers Run, so this is the entrance to the Settlers Run apartments, and this is the northern row of two buildings in Settlers Run. And on the northern boundary line of the Settlers Run, so not on our property, but on the apartment property, there is a very substantial row of trees, mature trees. They've been there, I expect they've probably been there for 20 years because this apartment project is at least 20 years old. So there's a thick stand of trees right here, and then between the buildings. There's about 25 trees in this area right here. The landscaping calculation for our property would require us to plant about 15 trees. And so what we have suggested to staff is that these trees that are already there satisfy that landscape buffer. And we would propose on the south property line to not add any additional trees because it's already very heavily landscaped. And the reason why we have asked for that is because on the south side of our property, there's two things going on here. The sanitary sewer service connection comes from the south, comes from the southeast. So that sewer is the nearest and basically the only sewer option for sewer connection that we have. And it has to come down this south property line. And so what I don't want to do is plant a bunch of trees over top of the sanitary sewer line. And then for the other reason is that we have the storm sewer detention pond in this down here in this corner that has a swale, a drainage swale that we construct behind the building and then around the south property line and leads into the detention pond. And for the same reason, I don't want to load that drainage swale up with trees and bushes. And I feel like while the landscaping that is required is not on our property, I feel like the buffer that's there is a better buffer than we can give you on day one anyway, because this buffer's 20 years mature and the buffer we're going to plant there is not. So I would propose that we let this buffer be as what it is, and us basically do nothing on the south property line other than grass where our swales are going to be. So, but on the east property line, let's see, which sheet is that? Well, it's the one that has trees. So on our east property line, which is this property line right here, our proposal is to meet the ordinance and plant the trees, the bush, the shrubs that are required on this east property line up as far as our work goes. And what I mean by that is our detention outlet goes up and then it goes into the neighboring development over here. And we would plant the trees in this area, and then if this ever were developed up here, at some point in the future, we'd landscape this at some point in the future if it ever were developed. Because our building's clear over here. And so straight straight east is landscaped on this plan. And I can also tell you that these two buildings right here, I own them. And I'm okay with this landscaping proposal. So this is okay with me, if that matters. I do not own this building, but this landscaping plan gets us up. So the storm sewer that I'm talking about connecting into goes between these two buildings right here. So we would have trees basically starting there and down this east property line. So we would have trees behind this building, which I do not own. I also own this building here, so, but I would get some trees there, I guess, so, but I do own that one. So I guess, in summary, as far as the landscaping goes, we would propose to carry on with the existing landscaping that's already there for the apartments and plant the required buffer from the southeast corner up to where the detention outlet cuts through into my development, and plant the trees there. That's what I would propose or ask for approval on for that this evening. And then as far as the site lighting goes, I gave you a lighting plan also. They would have these fixtures that are on the plan that I gave you, and they would be on the east face of the building and the north face of the building. And I believe our lighting plan is in compliance. The foot candles is, I believe it's in compliance with the ordinance, the way that it is, although I don't see the lighting projections for the lights on the north side of the building. So we need to add that, because that's not on this. I don't know why they didn't put that on there, but it's not on there. But we don't have any lights projected on the back of the building, and we also don't have any lights on the south side of the building. Yeah, there's the fixture that we would propose to use. So, oh, I can also tell you too this, one last thing. So on this beacon printout, it's probably the best way to describe it, you'll see some self-storage buildings that are on the property to the west, and the north end of our building. Yeah. There you go. So the north end of our building gets about to the break between this property and the self-storage building. So our building is in here. So we back up to the self-storage buildings, basically, to the west.
So how close will you be to that property line?
20 feet. So I got a 20-foot setback here, and I got a 20-foot setback on the south.
Okay. And this is the north side of the building?
That's the north, yeah.
Okay.
Which is a long ways from Maine. That north side's about right here.
Right,
So
okay.
it's actually behind the existing building. It's further back than the back of the existing building.
What about parking?
Good question. So on, probably best to see it on this sheet here. We would just park on the east side of the building in front of the overhead doors where the people would park. Out here in this, we got a concrete area, concrete apron out here in front. We would park there.
I see on the landscaping one, it has future pavement area, but then on the lighting, it says future gravel area. Is that going to be gravelled right off the bat, or is that both of those?
Well, okay,
Distance.
so what happened there was we showed it as gravel area. Lisa pointed out to us that the ordinance requires it to be a paved area. So our idea is to pave, yeah, that's probably the best picture right there. So our idea is to pave, so this is the existing asphalt drive right here. This, at one time, was gravel when it was Ditch Witch. You can look back in aerial photographs and see a heavy gravel area over here. But the idea is that from this drive west, we would pave, and this over here we would leave as grass or gravel or whatever's it. I mean, if he sprayed the grass that's there now with Roundup or some kind of weed killer, the stone would reappear because it's still there. But as far as the paving goes, we would propose to pave basically this, well, I guess across here, from the back side of this existing building down to all the way in front of the new building and then over to and in alignment with the existing drive.
And the retention pond was designed for that
Absolutely.
pavement.
Yes.
Now, if you were to pave the future pavement area would be able to handle that.
Yes. We treated that as if it were
Okay.
hard surface. I mean, essentially gravel gets to be at the point after you drive on it for a few years, it essentially gets to be a impervious surface anyway.
What percentage of the property will be covered with concrete paving?
I don't know the answer to that. That's a good question. We can calculate it, sort of. Well, okay, let's look at it this way. So, can you zoom that out just a little bit, please? Yeah, so we can kind of see the whole, there we go. That's close enough. So, there's our whole entire property is a rectangle. And this area here is grass. The rest of it, this area, aside from this detention pond, but this area right there is all hard surface of some sort, either a rooftop or a parking area. So if I had to guess, it's probably 60%. I'm not sure. I didn't calculate it, but if I had to guess, it's probably 60%, because I would say it's more than half. I mean, if you just drew a line across, you can take, this would be equal to this, so actually probably up to there would be about 50%, and then you got another percentage there to add in. So 60 to 70% likely covered in hard surface of some sort.
Lisa, is there a requirement for the amount of land on a light industrial that has to remain open?
I cannot answer that because I'm not 100% sure what the industrial district calls out for. What I would suggest is that he do those calculations and put that on the plans to make sure, and I will check the ordinance, see what the requirement is, and we'll make sure that if there is an open space, then we'll make sure that that's adhered to.
There will be, in the ordinance, a maximum hard surface coverage that's detailed in the ordinance. And like Lisa said, we'll make it comply. And if we had to peel off this plan hard surface to bring it into compliance, it would have to come out of this area right here.
That's along
Main.
10th Street?
Main
Main
Street.
Street.
Yep. Because this is their existing drive. They use all of this now, today. There's an area back here that they use today, and we obviously need this. So the logical area, if we had to lose any hard surface, would be out of this corner right here.
That would make it a more attractive entrance.
Sure.
Not to have the whole front in.
Mhm.
I asked a question about parking. Have you calculated how many parking spaces?
How many parking spaces we're going to need? Well, there's going to be 13 employees in the future. Like when they move into this, they're going to have about 8, and then they'll hire another 4 to 5 in the next year or so. It's a projection. And we have a building that's 225, I think, 225 feet long.
Well, this says you have to have one space per 500 square feet of floor area open to the public.
Right. So
But that's retail, isn't it?
well,
No?
that could be office area. So I put that in the letter mainly because there wasn't anything on the plans that delineated the requirement and what they were proposing. So if he could just give me that and meet that calculation, that's really all that we need for the parking.
Add the parking calculation to the development summary, along with the impervious, and we'll indicate the necessary parking spaces, and we'll make it comply. There's plenty of room on this area, on this property, to house the parking spaces that are necessary. So we're not going to have a problem meeting the parking space requirement. We'll just outline it better.
Now, have the issues that Joe Miller brought up, letter from the 7th,
We were, as late as today, coordinating with Joe. So I'm pretty sure we can get through our comments with Joe. Yes.
Yeah, I did see that you had submitted additional plans to Joe, but I don't know if he responded back. I don't think he has, yeah.
So we'll work through our comments. If for whatever reason we can't come to terms with Joe, then we'll be back here asking for a waiver. And I don't anticipate that happening. So I don't think we'll be back on this one.
If you had to have one for every 500 feet, it looks like you're talking a 13,000 square foot building, so that's 26.
That's just,
Plus
but
however
it's,
many people work there, so
Yeah.
you're talking maybe 40?
well, that's just the office area, not the warehouse area. So that calculation is just
Oh,
going to be
that's
for the.
not all
pub-
office.
Right,
Okay.
right. Half of that building is warehouse, maybe
4,000
even
square
more.
feet. Okay, that's 8.
Yeah.
Plus your boys, 13, 15.
Yeah.
You're talking, you're probably doing that anyway.
So Dale, I understand where you guys are coming from on removing those windows on the west and east elevation. On the east elevation, is it possible to keep those windows there, but to use some kind of a film or something that would still allow light to come in, but not peering
I
eyes?
asked Brandon about that specifically before we came here, and he said they're gone. He wants to eliminate discussion today.
That's on the east elevation? Is that correct?
It's above the doors.
The ones above the doors.
Security concern, is that what the issue was?
East and the west
Yeah, yeah.
elevations.
Well, I don't have any problem with the west ones being gone because they just go up against those storage units in that side.
Any other questions?
And this is just kind of a design thing. Wondering that the brick course along there, maybe have that go above the window. Just maybe sort of a cap top of the window, and that's just, I guess, because I'm on the design review.
Dale, do you have a copy of that elevation that you gave them?
Oh, this?
Looking at, did you have an extra copy of it? Thank you.
You think it ought to go to the top of the canopy?
Well, yeah, or just maybe a course or two above the window with maybe something along the top of
Like a capstone of some
Yeah,
sort or
yeah.
something.
So I'm a little hesitant to commit to that, only because I don't know why they stopped at the top of the window.
it. Yeah, yeah. And that, again, that's just more of
So I can ask the architect if there's a reason, like structurally, why we didn't go over the windows. And maybe there is, because you got to support the brick if they go over the windows.
a, yeah,
And that may be why they aren't, but I don't know that.
okay. Well, you might bring it up.
I wrote it down, so I can.
Yeah, it's something
have
that
to-
wouldn't fall on my sword.
Right, okay.
They'd have to put a lintel over the,
So he does not want to put windows on the east elevation.
The top, above the
Above the
overhead
doors.
It's okay. Above the overhead doors?
Yes, above
Yeah.
the overhead doors.
There's 1, 2, 3, 5 of them shown on that drawing above the overhead doors. He wants to delete. West.
I do have a quick comment since Dale's standing up here. So on the landscaping plan on the south side of that property line where there's that row of trees that's actually on the adjacent property, my only concern about that is this petitioner does not have control over those trees. So if they would go in and tear all those trees out, there would be no buffer there. And that's my only concern. And I understand that you've got some constraints because of the detention. Is there a way that you could move that landscaping on the north side of that detention pond, possibly, and wrap it around to the building?
North side.
They may be able to add some trees on the north side of the detention pond. My comment about that buffer, though, is that buffer would be there to buffer us, them. And it's their buffer. So if that buffer went away, On them. Because I don't have to have a buffer. Like, the buffer's there in their favor.
But the buffer requirement is on your client for, that's where the requirement is on this industrial site that backs up to a residential site. I don't know. I just was,
We've been there for 20 years, so.
yeah. It's up to the plan commission.
Lisa, then, in reference to those trees, is there nothing, I'll say, in our standards that says that if one of those trees came down, that another one would have to replace it? We don't have any teeth on that.
No, because they don't have any control over that property. And that's my
Well, I
only
understand they
concern.
don't. I'm just saying,
Right,
is there a certain responsibility of the apartment owner
to replace
those?
I don't know if it was a requirement at the time that they went through approval, or if they just did that on their own to just buffer. So I'd have to go back and do some research into that.
If I understand correctly, the requirements are for 15 trees
Do you agree with that, Lisa? I think that's what the calculation works out.
on the 5-acre lot.
On, yeah, well, the 15 trees would, technically should be along that south property line.
For the buffer.
I don't think that we're talking about 15 trees, and the whole big picture, the cost of 15 trees is insignificant. So I don't really see a big deal with putting them on the north side of the detention pond.
Does give a little bit of a buffer to the residences to the south. I think I would be willing to, I think that would take care of that requirement.
The detention pond, yeah.
You don't need any on the west side of that pond down to the.
Start running into utilities there too, so. 'Cause I have utilities going to the existing building to serve the sewer line. But there would only be a small gap though, on this, if we go across the detention pond, across the north side of the detention pond.
Yeah.
And that gap is gonna be right in here where those trees are. So at that point, we would only be depending on, if you wanna call it that, we'd only be depending on the apartments buffer just in this area right here. Agreed?
I just feel like there needs to be, first of all, it's an ordinance requirement. And if we need to shift the trees around or the landscaping around to achieve that, I think we can have a little bit of wiggle room on it.
And there's not enough room on the south side of the detention pond and
It just gets busy down there with drainage swale and utility lines. There's existing power and new sewer line. That area gets busy with utilities.
Okay.
And the detention pond's not an ugly feature anyway, so if we put the trees on the north side of the pond, you're shielding the parking area, which is really what we're trying to buffer anyway.
Do you have any contact with settlers around?
We haven't received any comments on this project at all.
With a letter, but we didn't try to talk to them. We didn't need them for anything, so
Yeah.
we didn't reach out to them.
Any other questions? Has that been before the design review yet?
I don't think it falls under that.
It does not, it's not within the corridor protection overlay.
Oh, okay. Is that all you have, sir?
whatever notes I had. So yes, that's
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Since this is a public hearing, I will open it up to this large audience that we have. Anybody have any comments? You got 1 second to get up or no?
Okay.
Nothing? Nobody? Public hearing section closed. Okay. If I can get this computer to work.
Were we asking for a commitment for the brick to go higher, or was it?
I think that was just more of a question. As far back as that sits, I don't think that's it.
Got this thing rolling now, it won't stop.
A little over 300.
Okay. Once again, we have three things we can do. We can approve the site plan, we can deny the site plan, or we can approve the site plan with conditions.
I move that we make a favorable recommendation for rezoning request with commitments.
It's not rezoning, is it?
I'm sorry,
site
with a
plan.
site,
Plan review.
I apologize,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's now a PUD, I'm sorry. I move that we make a favorable recommendation for a site plan. Can't do it.
With conditions. Didn't we have some conditions? Yes.
For a site plan review with commitments.
There you go.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the site plan with conditions. Roll call. I'll start on your end this time, Greg.
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Aye.
And I say aye also.
Aye.
Approve 5-0.
Appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
I'm going to go count the trees.
Tomorrow on changes to make sure that we, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Do you have anything to report, Ms. Lisa?
I could report a lot of things, but I won't.
Meeting?
No, we do have a meeting next month. There was,
Yes, we do.
the Miles is going to be coming back to you with some additional commitments that they made during the council here meeting. I'm trying to think, right now, I think that's all we have.
Will that be here or?
Probably in the gym, I would imagine, yes. That
Better
might,
sound
that would be the
system.
best.
Yeah, we have upgraded the sound system in
Yes,
that.
and it's
Yes.
100% better.
It's 100%
It's
better.
amazing.
Cool.
That's just to review
Just the
the changes that
additional,
changes
yes,
they agreed
right.
Okay.
And we either recommend or don't recommend the rezoning.
I think it's going to be more of a thing, because I don't think is more of an acceptance to the additional commitments. And then, I mean, because you sent it favorable. So if you accept those commitments, I think that's probably good enough. I will confirm that. I'll talk to Jewel and make sure that that's all that's needed. I don't,
Jewel be at our meeting?
yes, I believe he is planning to be there.
Actually, that's actually why it didn't come before us today, because he's
Yes.
not available today. So the earliest he was available was May 10th.
But I really don't have anything else.
No rumors?
Oh, gosh, there's all kinds of rumors.
Well, that's not the only thing in May.
Like I said, I'm not going to give it all up.
We have another one in May.
I'm sorry,
We have another one besides that in May.
do we?
Another item.
What is it?
I just cut it out of the paper yesterday. Remember?
I can't remember. What was it?
Here on 300. the, they want to vacate the commitments. that
Oh,
they-
yes. Camden Creek is adjacent to the Ellsbury property, and when they went through a rezone for Kensington and Four Oaks, there was a commitment to do fencing and trees and things like that.
They never did.
Well, they did in some areas, but in this area where Camden backs up to it, they didn't because,
Oh,
well, they're just now going through the approval, so.
Camden's a new one, right?
Right. So they're wanting to remove that commitment because they have that property under contract from what I understand. So it's for sale. But yep, that's
Nothing
right.
else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion and second to approve, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?